What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today, we're going to be talking our top 5 best value tight ends for the 2022 fantasy football season. Basically, these are guys that are going a little bit later right now than they probably should be, lower on rankings, that have some really nice upside, and that can parlay that into maybe some high-end tight end finishes. So these are names that you should definitely know heading into this season. So it should be a pretty good one. If you guys enjoy, hit that like button, subscribe, give us a follow on Twitter at AllDayPigskin to continue interacting with us there. Let us hear it in the comment section. Do you agree, disagree, along with any other questions you guys might have? And then lastly, make sure to get yourself a copy of the 2022 ADP Fantasy Football Draft Guide. Has everything you could want at a great value. Top 150 overall player rankings in standard and PPR formats, individual player bios, tiers, projections, along with general fantasy advice. Again, details in the description. Make sure to check that out. But with that being said, let's take a look at our list here, and we're going to utilize Fantasy Pros current rankings. And a quick note, this is going to be PPR based, so keep that in mind. But like I said before, these are guys that are good values right now. So, we're going to be looking outside of the top 5, around that, number 10 spot, not quite outside of it to begin with. But afterwards, we will be, don't worry, because the first name that I want to mention is Zach Ertz of the Arizona Cardinals. He comes in here at the number 9 spot per these rankings, and I think you can make the case that, after maybe a Darren Waller, that he could be the next guy on this list. And, let's look at what he did last season when he joined the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, he was like a top 5 tight end when he was producing, and prior to injuries hitting that roster, he was arguably the number 2 option for Kyler Murray, after a DeAndre Hopkins. And he was showing us flashes of what he was doing and how he was utilized back in his prime in Philly. And now, the Arizona Cardinals did add Marquise Brown, but the reason they did that is because DeAndre Hopkins will miss 6 games this season due to a pending suspension, which means essentially Zach Ertz will have a similar type of role as that number 2 pass catcher for Kyler Murray. And that's going to be valuable again here, folks. I think that, after the top 5 names at tight end, Kelsey, Andrews, Pitts, Kittle, Waller, and whatever, I just read them off these rankings. That's not necessarily how I would rank them. But afterwards, it's a free-for-all. And the fact that Zach Ertz is, here at the number 9 spot, behind a Dallas Goedert, behind a TJ Hawkinson, to me that makes no sense. Dallas Goedert, he doesn't have a pass-happy quarterback. He's the number 3 target on that offense, you could argue. And then TJ Hawkinson, I mean, again, he's the number what target? Behind Amon-Ra, probably behind DeAndre Swift, probably behind Jameson Williams. So, like the number 4 target on that offense, it's going to be tough. I think in terms of high-scoring offenses, I'd much rather have the Arizona Cardinals. They have a high-octane offense. They're going to be scoring points. Defensively, I mean, they're mediocre at best. So, like, Kyler Murray is going to continue to have to do his thing. I realistically do think, especially while DeAndre Hopkins is out, Zach Ertz can be a borderline top 5 tight end. The fact that you can get him in like the 8th round, maybe even in the 9th round, depending on the size of your leagues, is tremendous value. And if you have, reservations about Ertz for the entirety of the season, that's fine. He's a great candidate to flip right before DeAndre Hopkins comes back via trade, and then, get some good value in return for him. People are always looking for startable tight ends, and I do think he's going to be a guy that comes out hot to kick off the season. So to me, he is definitely a name that I'm going to be targeting, especially, again, if you want to go the trade route after a couple of hot weeks. But let's move on and look at outside the top 10 and start with Cole Kmet, a guy that is at the number 11 spot. But I kid you not, like, when we first started doing, so back in March, let's say, our mock drafts and putting out content for this 2022 fantasy football season, when I tell you that Fantasy Pros had him close or outside of the top 20 tight ends, I'm I'm being 100% serious. And we were here telling you this guy has tremendous upside. He should not be anywhere close to, 18, 19, 20th overall. He should be definitely inside the top 15, and he should be potentially knocking on the door of a top 10 type of ranking. And I mean, I don't want to say that we called that spot on, but we called that spot on. He's skyrocketing up rankings. Some people, some platforms don't have him as high, but, his ADP is definitely rising. I don't think it's going to get inside the top 10, even though we have him, in that range. But here's the reason why you should be excited. And for everyone that's saying, well, it's the Chicago Bears offense and they're going to be one of the worst teams in the league, you're not wrong. But it's a good thing that, being a good real life team and offense doesn't necessarily translate to being, relevant for fantasy football terms, because you can be a crappy team like the Chicago Bears and you can produce some talent, because it's all about volume, especially at the pass catching positions and even more so at tight end, because the Bears didn't really do all that much to surround Justin Fields with established pass catchers this offseason. It's Darnell Mooney, and then Byron Pringle is your number two. No, I mean, Cole Kmet is the most established guy there other than Darnell Mooney. So in my opinion, he's going to be the number two target for Justin Fields, and that's going to lead to a lot of volume. On top of that, we saw Jimmy Graham leave this offseason, so that's going to lead to increased usage for Cole Kmet offensively. Those are two big-time wins for Cole Kmet. And, even though there might not be a huge number of touchdowns, I do think, especially in PPR formats, he could have like 5 catches a game. That would not shock me one bit. And then when you throw in the yardage on top of that, Cole Kmet is a sneaky, great pick in the later rounds. You can get him in the double-digit rounds. Again, it's going to depend on how bullish other people are on him in your leagues. But I absolutely love, especially if I've punted on the tight end position, I'll even get a Zach Ertz and a Cole Kmet. But I'd be perfectly fine having Cole Kmet as my starter all season long. He has super nice upside. In PPR formats, I always say this, volume is king. And even if the Bears struggle offensively, Kmet is going to get those targets. It should lead to a decently high floor. And that's extremely important. And really, honestly, all you can ask for in terms of tight end production, especially if you're getting that tight end like in double-digit rounds. But let's move on and let's look at a guy here in going all the way down to the 21st spot, Gerald Everett of the LA Chargers. I thought he was an under-the-radar signing this offseason by the Chargers. And, for all the reasons that we liked somebody like a Jared Cook last year as a dart throw, we like Gerald Everett even more so this year. We think that Everett is, has a higher upside, a little bit, more skilled than Cook, and can do some things better offensively. With him, on top of that, he's joining an electric offense. He's the number one guy on the depth chart right now, also worth mentioning at that position. But I mean, he's joining, Justin Herbert, who a lot of people, are saying is the top young not rookie quarterback, but top young quarterback in the NFL, or top 3 guy like him, Patrick Mahomes, etc. Either way, though, he is going to have a lot of high upside performances when you look at that offense. There's so many points to go around. They play in a crazy good division with teams like the Broncos, teams like the Raiders, the Chiefs. So 6 times a year, they're going to be in potentially shootouts. That's really all you can ask for these late round. And especially when you get to outside of the top 20 rankings for these tight ends, that's all you can ask for. It's pretty much just boomer and bust guys, complete dart throws. But when you can identify a guy that's the number one, dude on his roster in terms of being the starter, unquestionably, a guy that's on a stellar offense, a guy that is, going to be every single year, 6 times a year in shootouts. Like, things are piling up and reasons are there for you to take on chance on Everett. He could very well go undrafted. I think he's a nice stash. it's going to be tougher for me to call him a straight up starter week in and week out. There's definitely going to be more ups and downs when we're looking at Everett compared to an Ertz and a Kmet. But I do like the upside here for Everett. I think he can definitely be a top 15 guy and then maybe even be knocking on the door of a top 10 finish. Now let's move on only a spot lower. We get to Evan Ingram of now the Jacksonville Jaguars. Ingram was a guy that I feel like always had the upside. Every single year we were like, this is the year with him and the Giants. But due to a combination of things, injuries, the Giants just being a dumpster fire, Daniel Jones, like it didn't happen with Evan Ingram. And now, though, he gets a fresh start. And I think that's honestly all you could ask for with Ingram. On top of that, there's rumors that, at least early on in the offseason, that the Jaguars would use him like in the slot, potentially, as this kind of hybrid player. And I don't know if that's going to happen or not, assuming he just stays at the tight end spot and does normal things. What we can't ignore is the guy is an absolute physical freak. He is a mismatch. That was true when he was with the Giants. That's true now. And, you look at his competition, I mean, there's not really any stud wide receivers on this team. Like, Christian Kirk is the biggest name here, and he got overpaid by everyone's standards. Like, who else? Marvin Jones? These aren't names that Evan Ingram should be scared of. I think, he's also going to a coach that likes to utilize the tight end position. Trevor Lawrence on the up and up without Urban Meyer. I think this offense is going to be much improved, and Evan Ingram is the number one guy here. I don't think we're going to see a top 10 season, but I think we're going to get a reminder of why so many people like the upside of Ingram during his time with the New York Giants. And I definitely think he's going to surprise people. I think he will be in the top 20. In PPR formats, I'd be more willing to take a chance on him. But overall, he's definitely ranked way too low. I think he's just a forgotten name, to be quite frank with you. I think he burned people so many times, but he got paid this offseason. And if you want to use that as an indication, he will be a part of this offense. And I'm willing to take a chance on him one more time, especially because it's not going to cost you anything. Like, he's another name similar to Gerald Everett, probably going to go undrafted. So if you're somebody that likes to get a second tight end, that's a flyer, a dart throw, Evan Ingram is a name to keep an eye out for. And then finally, we go to David Njoku of the Cleveland Browns. And this one probably has a little bit of an asterisk next to it. The reason being is we don't know what's going to happen with Deshaun Watson this season. But, gun to my head, I'd probably say he's suspended, and he's suspended for a majority of the season. If that happens, I'm including Njoku on this list right now because it's not official as of this point in time. And if we assume that Watson plays, obviously the upside for all these pass catchers is much larger, but Njoku just got paid as well, like a big-time tight end, so the Browns want to utilize him. I am worried about not only him, but all these pass catchers if Watson doesn't play a single snap this year. And in that case, I probably wouldn't have him on this list. If you guys are looking for a potential other guy as a replacement to him, I'll throw you a little extra here. Maybe somebody like a Robert Tonyan in Green Bay with Devontae Adams gone. He is somebody that Aaron Rodgers likes. But let's get back to David Njoku. I like his upside with Deshaun Watson because other than Amari Cooper, I think David Njoku, similar to and Evan Ingram, is a super physical guy, a lot of mismatches, and Watson, compared to all these other quarterbacks on this team, is just leaps and bounds better than them. With him, the Browns can be a top 10 offense, but again, it's gonna depend on if he takes the field or not. Maybe it'll be next year. I don't know. It's just an impossibly difficult situation to predict, but just kind of throwing that name out there. Maybe, you can capitalize on him as a guy that if you draft early and somebody thinks Watson is going to play, you trade him or do something like that. He's probably going to be more so of a factor next year, but again, just kind of throwing that name out there to be on the radar. That's why, in case Watson doesn't play and Njoku isn't really a factor this year, I wanted to add Robert Tonyan to the list as kind of that last name to keep an eye out for. But with that, we kind of wrap up this breakdown. And as always, let me hear it in the comment section. Did you agree, disagree? Who else would you put on this list of really good value tight ends this season that you can get in the later rounds? I'm always curious to see that in the comments section. If you enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe. Again, make sure to check out the 2022 ADP Fantasy Football Draft Guide, now available for purchase. Details in the description. But with that being said, we will see you guys in future videos.